Now, were you asked to do a forensic evaluation of Lindsay Clancy?
Yes.
And you were asked to do that by the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office, correct?
Correct.
And did you receive direct payment from the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office for your evaluation?
No.
How did that payment plan, how did that work between the DA's office and your services?
So I do my work in testimony and the like through the University of Virginia. So my department is the recipient of any funds that come from the work that I do. I get a salary from the university that is not dependent on the number of cases that I am involved with or whatever. So I don't receive payment myself. I see it as part of my job as a professor.
And in terms of your work with the university, does the university have any impact or influence on what your evaluation is or what your conclusions are?
No, not at all.
For your review of Lindsay Clancy, what types of records and other materials did you review?
Well, they were extensive. They involved significant medical records, not just the psychiatric records, outpatient and inpatient, but also medical records. Certainly the hospital records from McLean, the hospital records from Tewksbury, but also emergency department visits at South Shore and Mass General Hospital. So a significant body of medical and mental health records, both inpatient and outpatient. But in addition, there was a substantial amount of grand jury materials that I reviewed, and videos. For example, videos not only of interviews of individuals, but also in January when the Clancy family went to the museum, where they went to the Cape Codder water park, was able to review those kinds of videos as well. I also received the reports from both the government, but also the defense. And so those experts who were retained, I had an opportunity to review those. I mean, the list of materials is very significant. CVS records, for example, pharmacy records, and law enforcement records, for example, the police reports and things like that from that day, 24 January 2023, in which the event occurred.
And Doctor, is it typical for you to have such a breadth of records and information, both pre-killing and post-killing, when you do a forensic evaluation?
No, I wouldn't say that's typical. Certainly for any evaluation, it's important to try and obtain as much information as possible. But in this case, I think the amount of information was truly significant.
And you also interviewed the defendant, correct?
Yes, I did.
And how many times did you interview her, and for how long?
I interviewed Ms. Clancy on 2 occasions. One was on the 29th of May of this year, and the other was the 4th of June. I believe on the 29th of May, I interviewed her for approximately 6.5 hours. And then the second time in June 4th, it was about 5 hours.
And were those interviews in person or on Zoom?
They were by way of Zoom.
And why were they by way of Zoom?
For personal reasons, I was unable to travel at that time, and so I requested the ability to have an interview by way of a Zoom video platform, and that was approved.
And did you find that doing the interviews by Zoom inhibited your ability to evaluate Ms. Clancy in any way?
Well, I think there are always limitations when one is not physically present, when one is seeing someone in a video setting. Sometimes it takes longer to be able to get information and establish rapport. Other limitations are just having an opportunity to see the environment, that the individual is in. I have done evaluations in the past using a Zoom format. There are certainly advantages to being in person.
Did you, in your interviews with Ms. Clancy, have any difficulties having her answer questions or establishing a rapport with her?
No, she was very pleasant, very responsive to questions that I asked on both occasions.
Were there any benefits to doing the interviews on Zoom?
Well, one benefit that one doesn't always have with an in-person evaluation is that a platform like this can also save the entire interview, and both video of the interviewer, myself, but also Ms. Clancy. So if someone wants to really understand the interview and how it went, you not only have a transcript, but you have a video that really demonstrates the course of the interview, how it went, and that can be very helpful. That can be more helpful than if, as a clinician or as an assessor, I am writing notes. Because when you're writing notes, sometimes it's harder to be able to attend to the individual. So certainly being able to have a transcript of the interview is helpful, and I think it makes the process more transparent as well, which I think is a positive.
As part of your evaluation in this case, did you also interview what's known as collaterals or other people who knew the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Who did you interview?
Well, I interviewed Patrick Clancy, also on a Zoom platform.
And after you had reviewed all of the records that were provided to you and the criminal file and all the evidence that was provided to you and conducted these interviews, both with Ms. Clancy and Patrick Clancy, were you able to conduct an analysis of all of that material in order to come to your eventual conclusions?
Yes.
And if we could just go through your analysis of this case, and if we could start with, I think what you called in your report, Ms. Clancy's characterization of the command auditory hallucinations.
Yes. So Ms. Clancy stated to me and some other evaluators that her hallucination, that of an external voice, something coming from outside of her head, occurred when she was standing at the refrigerator. She said that she was in the process of making her children their dinner when she received a call from Patrick Clancy, returned the call, and then as soon as she finished the call with Patrick Clancy, she said that is when she heard the voice. This is your last chance. You have to kill your kids and then kill yourself. And so that was what she told a number of us. There are also other accounts that she made to individuals that were quite a bit different. To Dr. Spinelli, for example, she said that the voice happened at 5:10 or 5:15 p.m. as soon as Patrick Clancy left on his errands, and that the voice. She described the voice to Dr. Spinelli as increasing in intensity, but saying, "This is your last chance. You have to kill your kids before you kill yourself." But also that it was that her children would suffer if she did not do that. When I asked her about the voice that she heard, again, she said that it started really right after the telephone call at 5:34 with her husband, Patrick. And she said it was a man's voice. It was very clear. It was external. In other words, it came from outside of her head. That it was constant. So this phrase, "This is your last chance. You have to kill your kids and then kill yourself," was something that was repeated over and over and over and over again during that period that she strangled her children. And then just as soon as it started, it stopped at when she had finished killing the children, strangling the children.
Doctor, was there anything about what she reported to you about the voice that was significant to you in your evaluation, and if so, why?
Well, what was significant to me is that she had not spoken about hearing voices before that in any of the mental health professionals, the psychiatrists, the nurse practitioners, the physicians and staff in the emergency departments or at McLean. And so this was the first time that she reported that was documented, but also that she experienced an auditory hallucination, according to what she told me. So that was unusual. And then also, what was very unusual was the fact that the voice stopped with the death or the strangling of her youngest son, Callan, and that she went upstairs and then proceeded to engage in behavior in an effort to kill herself, but that the voice had stopped as soon as she had strangled her last Callan, her youngest child.
I could stop you there for a moment and ask you, you said that it's unusual that this was the first time that she had heard this voice. Why is that unusual?
Well, she had certainly suffered with symptoms of mental illness, depression and anxiety, most specifically. Anxiety that she had reported to Dr. Tufts in mid-September, and then certainly the symptoms that later on included suicidal ideation and also what she said were dark or intrusive thoughts to harm her children that she mentioned to her husband and her mother on, I think, 2 occasions.
And Doctor, you also mentioned that it was unusual that the voice stopped after Callan was killed. Why is that unusual?
Well, I've worked with, compared to other patients that I've treated who have had command auditory hallucinations.
I'm going to object to that, Your Honor. Same objection that was raised before.
Counsel, I see it.
Doctor, based on your training and experience in dealing with diagnosing and treating people who have psychosis, and what you've learned in all your training and schooling, is it typical for someone in psychosis to hear a voice only one time, never before, never after?
No.
And again, based on your training and experience, is it typical for someone in psychosis to hear a voice that's constant rather than intermittent?
No, that is not typical.
And what does it mean, the difference between a constant voice and an intermittent voice?
Well, an intermittent voice would come and go. It wouldn't necessarily just keep playing over and over again as if it were on a tape, which Ms. Clancy told me that it was a voice. It's the same thing in the same tone, repeated over and over and over until she had strangled Callan.
And is it typical, based on your training and experience, for someone to hear command hallucinations and then for them to stop abruptly?
No. Committing the act is not curative of the voice. I've not ever seen that.
And Doctor, based on your training experience, someone in psychosis hearing a voice without accompanying delusions, is that typical?
That is that would be pretty rare. It's absolutely not typical.
And in talking to Ms. Clancy, did you speak to her about the concerns she had that if she had voiced thoughts of harming her children to providers, medical providers, that her children would have been taken away?
Yes.
And did you see that as a delusional thought?
No. Certainly with the requirements that healthcare professionals have to report any issues that could cause harm to children, for example, as required reporters, it's very rational for her to be concerned that by voicing her thoughts of harm could cause her children, certainly an assessment and a rapid assessment and a determination about how best to keep the children safe. So I didn't see that as irrational, but rather rational, just understanding the healthcare system.
And when reviewing the records and speaking to Ms. Clancy, did you see or notice any delusional statements or beliefs surrounding the hearing of that voice on the 24th?
No, I didn't.
Now, based on your training experience, is it typical for someone in psychosis to hear a voice and immediately act on it?
No.
And why is that?
I'd like to have Adobe a hearing at this point, Judge, on this. I'd like to test his qualifications to this.
I'm going to, same objection, same ruling.
So your opinion is it's not typical, correct?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned the defendant told you that when she received the call from her husband at 5:33 and called him back at 5:34, that she was getting dinner ready for her children, correct?
Yes.
And did she tell you what she was about to get out of the refrigerator?
Yes, she said she was at the refrigerator and that the refrigerator door was open and that she was getting chicken nuggets out of the refrigerator section for her children.
Now, in your collateral interview with Patrick Clancy, did you learn from him that when he left the residence, the children were already eating chicken nuggets on the couch?
Yes.
And did Patrick Clancy tell you that Dawson in particular was eating chicken nuggets and green beans out of a bowl on the couch?
Yes, that's what he told me.
And is it fair to say that there are crime scene photographs showing a bowl on the couch?
Yes.
And so is there any significance to you in the defendant telling you that when she got the phone call from Patrick, when he's at CVS, that she's making chicken nuggets versus Patrick and telling you that that had already happened and the crime scene photos showing you the bowl was already on the couch?
Well, it's inconsistent.
And are inconsistencies like that important in your evaluations in cases like this?
Yes.
And how so?
Well, looking at someone's mental status at the time of an offense, it's important to understand what was going on in their mind at the time. And in this case, the widely divergent reports from Lindsay Clancy versus her husband Patrick raise questions about what she is telling me and how things are happening. So certainly that's a cause for significant concern. One of them is not correct in their statement.
And in terms of what you testified about earlier about the defendant giving you one version of what the voice told her and giving Dr. Spinelli a different version of what the voice told her, is there any significance in your evaluation to that?
Yes.
And what is that?
Well, again, it's markedly inconsistent. Ms. Clancy was very clear with me about the time that the voice started and that it was constant for a period of time until the children were killed, and then it stopped. And according to Dr. Spinelli's report, Ms. Clancy stated that the voice started much, much earlier, actually when Patrick Clancy left. And so we're talking about a significant difference in time. And those two just, they don't match. So it's hard to, which version is the one that I should consider.
Now, further along in your analysis, you talk about Ms. Clancy's outward portrayals misleading her family and providers. What do you mean by that, and what did you see in the records and in your interview of her?
Yes. Well, in looking back at her history, for example, with Patrick, she dated Patrick when she was in nursing school, and that was at a time that she was experiencing fairly significant anxiety, according to her, such that she went to a psychiatrist and was treated for her anxiety with Prozac and Wellbutrin and also propranolol. And this was for a fairly significant period of time during their dating, approximately a year. And when I spoke with Mr. Clancy, and also in other testimony and collateral information, he was completely unaware that she was experiencing mental health symptoms at that time that they were dating, or that she was taking medication. And he said he did not learn that she had taken medication, mental health medication, Prozac, Wellbutrin, those are both antidepressants, as well as propranolol, which helps with anxiety, particularly with the kind of presentations that she was doing. But he was unaware until during this time that she was having, great difficulty, November, December time period.
And that's of 2022?
Yes. But there are other aspects too where the portrayal, her portrayal, misled others in terms of how she was doing.
Can you give us an example of that?
Yes. Well, in the numerous text messages, which really varied, there were times when she stated that she was doing very well. And for example, even in the days leading up to the 24th of January 2023, the photographs that she was sending Instagram and the like really portrayed something very different than what she later stated was going on inside. With regard to providers, Ms. Clancy told me that during this period that she was having such difficulty, and that was really starting in October. She started taking medication in October. Ms. Clancy told me that she was having a real difficulty with some symptoms and anxiety and the like. Her mother-in-law suggested to her that there was a doctor that she knew named Rose who was willing to talk with her just on an informal basis. And so as I understand, this doctor made time for her to be seen, not in an official way, not as in a doctor-patient relationship, but just to get an understanding about Ms. Clancy's problems. And that this doctor recommended Lamictal or lamotrigine as a medication that could be very helpful, with regard to the depression she was experiencing, the issues with mood and the like. And so in looking at Dr. Tuff's notes, there is a note, I believe, on December 1st of 2022, in which they discuss Lamictal as a real possible medication. And then by mid-December, it was really a very, very difficult time. The whole month of December, in many ways, was very difficult. But after this experience.
Yeah, we have a question.
So you've talked about the defendant seeing the provider named Rose and getting the recommendation for Lamictal, the defendant talking to Dr. Tufts about the Lamictal. Was there another provider that she talked to about Lamictal?
Yes.
And who was that?
That was nurse practitioner Gelada.
And eventually was Lamictal prescribed by one of these providers? Well,
really by both. And when you say talking, it was a written communication and not a verbal one.
And so could you tell from the records whether or not Ms. Clancy filled the prescription for Lamictal?
Yes.
What is Lamictal?
Lamotrigine is actually, Lamictal is an anticonvulsant that was approved for bipolar disorder back in the early 2000s, I think 2003, for bipolar disorder. Now it's used for epilepsy, but also been found by the FDA to be extremely helpful in depression related to bipolar disorder.
And after receiving the 3 recommendations to try Lamictal and the prescription from Dr. Tufts, which she filled, did the defendant tell you whether or not she took the Lamictal?
She told me that she had decided not to take the Lamictal because she was concerned about the potential for a rash, a serious rash.
And the fact that 3 providers recommended this medication to help her and the defendant chose not to take it because of the potential of this rash, was that significant to you in any way in your evaluation?
Yes.
And how so?
Well, Dr. Tufts had written a prescription and it had been filled. Actually, Nurse Gelada also wrote a prescription for the Lamictal, and Ms. Clancy told her, well, you can cancel that because I already have a prescription of Lamictal from Dr. Tufts. What was concerning was that I don't see evidence that Dr. Tufts was notified that she had decided against the Lamictal. And so that would have given a provider an opportunity to think about something else that also could help in this domain. But yet Ms. Clancy had decided not to take it, but also not to tell the doctor that she had decided not to take it.
Well, doctor, was there also something that you noticed in the way she described, Ms. Clancy described to you, how she was feeling at McLean Hospital when she was there versus the description of her feelings in the McLean records?
Yes.
And what was the difference between the two, and how was it significant in your evaluation?
I recall that she told me that she felt like a zombie. It's very, very significantly affected. And certainly, while the records at McLean demonstrate that she was not doing well, there were differences in terms of how she characterized that.
And when a patient is characterizing how she felt at a certain time in different ways, one to you and a different way to her actual provider at the time, is that concerning in any way?
Well, yes.
And why is that?
Well, the more candid a patient can be with the symptoms that they're experiencing, the better able the prescriber is to make a determination about how best to treat those symptoms. And also, it can be very helpful in diagnosis as well. And
did you also take note of the appointment Dr. Tufts had with the defendant on January 23rd, 2023 in the records, and the fact that the defendant denied experiencing suicidal or homicidal ideation in that meeting?
Yes.
And how was that significant, if it was?
Well, Ms. Clancy had been looking into alternative treatments and had discussed with Dr. Tufts earlier the potential for esketamine. This is an FDA-approved medication that has to be administered by a doctor within a facility, but it can have rapid positive effects in treating depression. And so in that note, Dr. Tufts wrote that the potential for esketamine treatment or transcranial magnetic stimulation were ones that they were exploring.